Chapter 11 Bandits Part 1. Twilight perched on Pyros' charred skull, her blades aloft at her sides. Rain fell around her from the black sky above, rippling off her cloak and running down Pyros' draconic features. She faced down a pair of griffins and a pegasus. After the column of fire, it hadn't taken long for the gang's scouts to locate them. With a smooth sweep of celestial fury, Twilight lopped off the tip of one of Pyros' golden fangs. She levitated the fragment up to eye level and wrapped a scroll around it. She dropped it in an oilskin bag and floated it over to where the bandits crouched on the ground beneath the watchful gaze of her friends.
You're free to go. Take this back. If anyone reads the note but Gilda, I put a spell on it that will kill them,
she said. A lie, but she needed to ensure her message made it back to the bulk of the bandits. She had written,
My name is Twilight Sparkle. I'm an agent of the Iron Circle, and I killed your leaders because they betrayed our cause. The bounty was a test, and for your attempt to collect it for the gold of the Iron Circle, you have passed. However, the organization has served its purpose and must be eradicated. Consider the Cloakwood Gang dissolved. You did earn something for your efforts. If one of you can rise and bring this fragment of Pyros' fang to me at his lair, you will be presented with a sizable portion of the dragon's hoard. I expect only the strongest to arrive. I'm sure you understand what I mean. If you do not have the strength or the resolve for this sort of contest, you are free to go. Never return.
Lies. Layer after layer of them made up the message. She couldn't afford to fight the Cloakwood Gang, not after depleting her and her group's resources to kill a dragon. Even if some of them saw through the deception, though, she hoped it would divide them enough that when they came for her, she could win. She doubted she could escape the forest before they caught up with her. There would be a confrontation.
It might as well be beside his corpse, where they can see what we've done,
she thought.
Dear Princess Celestia, I'm glad that you told me the truth. I would rather know. What we do in this life matters more than I could have imagined. This life is all we have. It is everything. And knowing that helped me to do the right thing, despite how angry I was at the one who took Star Swirl from me forever. Even with your response, I have more questions than answers. What does it mean to be consumed by the abyss? What did the shadow do with souls before you and your sister killed him? Is it possible to reach the souls trapped in nothing? And if you can't help them, can anyone else? Once, you defeated the shadow, but what of death?
Twilight lifted her quill from her scroll, looking up when Spike's voice cut through her thoughts. It had been nearly an hour since the scouts had left, and there was no sign of the confrontation she expected.
So, you killed him, huh?
Spike asked. He was seated on a block of stone, not 10 paces from Pyros' hindquarters. He ignored the rainfall that plummeted from the cloudy night sky and drenched his scales.
Yes, we did,
Rarity said while rummaging through the dragon's hoard, her cloak protecting her from the rain.
He didn't give us much of a choice. Leaving wasn't an option.
She paused and added,
Thanks Celestia, none of us were hurt.
Spike looked wistfully at the massive corpse. His eyes traced up the body until Pyros' shoulders disappeared beneath a pile of rubble.
Not too bad, anyway.
Applejack said from a rain-free spot beneath the hall's ruined roof, drawing Twilight's attention. Fluttershy gently rubbed a salve into Applejack's coat, paying special attention to the spots where her fur had singed black. The sheer heat of the dragon's last breath had scorched her back even through the fire protection spell and her cloak. Twilight tucked herself deeper into the warm nook she occupied, shielding her letter. Though the roof had largely collapsed after Fluttershy damaged the structure's integrity, pieces of it remained intact. Cloakwood bordered the Everfree, and storms like this were not uncommon here. The storm had eased up since it first hit a few minutes after they had killed Pyros, and she hoped it would move on altogether soon. With a sigh, she set her quill back to the page.
I'm sorry, you probably don't have the answers. Every pony else talks like you know everything and can do anything. Ponies act like faith in you will solve all their problems and then wonder why you don't help them. Some scholars say that you've abandoned us since you walked the world once but don't anymore. Star Swirl said you had your reasons, and I'm certain they're good, but I still have to ask why.
Did you, think he was handsome?
Spike said abruptly. Twilight glanced up from her letter again, watching her friends. Rarity stopped shoveling gold coins into her bag of holding for a moment to look at Spike.
He had a pretty face as a pony, but there's a lot more to being handsome than that. You have to be a gentle stallion.
She eyed Pyros' corpse disdainfully.
It doesn't matter what he looked like, because all he had in his soul was venom, and the only thing he cared about was himself. It's probably why Applejack's mother left him, like any intelligent mare would.
So if he was a gentle stallion, it wouldn't matter that he was a dragon?
Spike asked. Rarity blinked at him.
Well, no, but I've never heard of a noble dragon.
Spike slumped dejectedly, toying with an emerald.
I'm like a dragon. What about me?
Rarity chuckled.
Like a dragon, yes. You've got a good heart. You're not like him.
She laughed brightly and wrapped a hoof around his shoulders.
You're a perfect little fey dragon. What's gotten into you?
Well, I can sort of see what Twilight is doing while I'm on the celestial plane now. And I told one of the keepers that you were fighting a dragon, and he said some stuff.
He brightened, smiling.
Thanks, though. You're right.
Rarity quirked a brow at Spike.
Celestia lets her servants get away with bullying?
Well, no, but don't worry about it,
Spike said. He brought the emerald up to his mouth. Rarity yelped when he bit down on it.
What are you doing?
Spike froze, half-eaten emerald in his claws.
Eating? These are really good.
Rarity narrowed her eyes at Spike.
How many of those have you had?
Spike shrank under her gaze.
3 or 4?
Spike!
Rarity shrieked.
You just ate 1,000 bits!
I'm really sorry,
Spike said.
I didn't realize they were worth so much.
Rarity took a deep breath.
It's okay.
She gazed at the mound of treasure before her and squealed gleefully.
There's still so much. Look at all this. I'll be able to pay off my shop with just 1/6 of it and have a fortune left over.
Twilight chuckled softly and returned to writing.
Again, I'm sorry. I should get to the point. I learned something about pride today. We killed a fully grown dragon who believed himself to be invincible. In his arrogance, he gave us the opportunity to prepare. I also made a mistake out of pride. And because of it, we were discovered as imposters by a gang of bandits. Fluttershy very nearly lost her life. I learned that if I want to keep my friends safe, I need to be confident in my abilities, but I should not take any unnecessary risks. There's simply too much to lose. And I don't know what I would do without them. Your faithful student, Twilight Sparkle. Twilight!
Pinky said. Twilight looked up as she finished her letter. Pinky was practically vibrating with excitement in front of her. The Earth Pony threw 4 shoes on the ground.
You need to tell me that these won't turn me into a stallion forever before I put them on.
Twilight rolled up her scroll.
Spike, could you send this to Celestia, please?
She called out while waving the scroll above her head. Spike dropped off his seat and scampered toward her. While he took the scroll, Twilight turned her attention to the shoes. Silvery spiderweb designs were inscribed on the surface of each steel shoe.
Come on, Twilight!
Pinkie whined.
Give me a second.
Twilight grumbled. This was the 5th object that Pinkie had brought to her attention since they started looking through the dragon's hoard. Though the items were ornate, nothing so far was cursed or magical.
Just relax. I had to wait and do nothing for the whole fight,
Pinkie complained.
I told you, you were backup. If something had gone wrong, I was counting on you to provide a distraction.
Twilight said while inspecting the shoes.
I don't think I need a spell for these,
she decided. It had been a long day, and if she invested magic on every little thing, she would drain her remaining reserves.
Yeah, I know, and nothing went wrong, which was great, but I still wanted to do something,
Pinkie said.
The fewer ponies in the line of fire, the better. It was bad enough Rainbow and Applejack had to get so close to that thing.
Twilight shoved the shoes away.
These aren't cursed, and they probably aren't magic. Go nuts. Thanks, Twilight,
Pinkie said.
Rarity, I need you to help me put on some shoes.
She snatched up the 4 metal pieces in her mouth and headed for Rarity.
Hey, Twilight, if you're done riding your letter, could you come lend me a hoof?
Applejack asked. She stepped over some rubble and out into the rain. Her cloak tightened snugly around her shoulders.
I think my pa left me a little present.
Twilight climbed to her hooves and tossed her hood up.
Where?
Over here,
Applejack said, approaching the corpse.
How do you feel about cutting open chest cavities?
Twilight blinked and trotted after Applejack. They arrived on the lip of a small excavation they'd made in the rubble around the dragon to retrieve Applejack's chain.
Your father left you a present in the dragon?
Twilight asked, quirking an eyebrow at the corpse.
Well, he didn't mean to leave it there.
Applejack held up the tip of her chain, indicating a spot next to the offset spike at the end.
My pa hit him so hard with this chain that he cracked it, even though it was magic. A piece stayed in him, and I'm hoping it's still in there.
Twilight nodded.
All right, we'll take a look.
With a grimace, she began to cut away at the dragon's chest with her swords. Pulling Applejack's chain out link by gory link had been bad enough, and this task was even worse. After a couple of minutes, they found the golden piece lodged beneath a flap of the dragon's collapsed lung and the fibrous tissue beside the heart. Twilight pulled it from the corpse and took a step back. It looked exactly like the spike still affixed to Applejack's chain. The rain washed away the dragon's blood, revealing a magical rune.
Truth,
Twilight said, reading it aloud.
The chain used to be called Truth Seeker,
Applejack said.
Thanks, Twilight, for helping me get this back. And for everything else.
Twilight slipped the spike into Applejack's pack.
do you feel any better now that he's dead?
Not really.
Applejack said, regarding the desecrated corpse.
And I didn't expect to. Granny told me nothing good ever comes from revenge. But there was justice in killing him. I'm glad he's dead.
She looked into Twilight's eyes.
We got mine. And now we're gonna get yours.
Twilight glanced down at her hooves.
Will killing him really change anything?
She wondered. The only thing she knew for certain was she wanted him to pay for what he had done. Before Twilight could say anything else, Rainbow Dash swept in from above, the leading edges of her wings spraying them both with rainwater as she touched down.
Someone's coming. Just one?
Twilight asked. Rainbow nodded. Twilight stood beside Pyros' skull out in the courtyard. The stones glistened with moisture beneath the light of her horn, but the rain had moved on. Gilda limped toward her, covered in blood, clutching the fragment of the golden fang in one claw. The shaft of an arrow protruded from one of her wings, and the other was nothing but a messily cauterized stump. She looked at Twilight with one yellow eye, the other covered by a mess of clotted blood pasted over the side of her face.
I did it.
She gasped and collapsed to the ground a few hoofspans away from Twilight.
How many did you kill?
Twilight asked, horrified.
More than 10, I think. I lost track.
Gilda said. Twilight felt a shiver run down her spine.
What about the rest?
Dunno. I didn't tell them what was in your message, but I dropped it. They read it and came after me. They turned on each other, and I killed them when they tried to take the fang from me. They all wanted it.
Gilda murmured, inching her way forward.
Did any leave?
I don't think many did.
Twilight looked down at her hooves.
This wasn't what I wanted.
She mumbled.
Wasn't this the plan?
Rarity said from beside her.
We got them to fight each other instead of us. We beat the Cloakwood Gang.
Gilda's good eye widened.
I wanted them to leave,
Twilight said. Rarity shook her head sadly.
You can't dangle treasure in front of desperate ponies and expect them to turn away, Twilight. It doesn't work like that.
You,
Gilda gasped.
You aren't going to give me anything, are you?
No.
Twilight drew Solstice.
When she's dead, this will all be over,
she thought. She focused on Gilda. She saw nothing but despair in the griffin's eye. A cold acceptance. Before she could bring her blade down, Rainbow intervened, moving between her and Gilda in the blink of an eye.
You can't just kill her,
Rainbow said.
She was my friend.
What else can we do?
Twilight asked, meeting Rainbow's gaze. Rainbow glared fiercely at her.
What happened to everyone deserving a chance?
Twilight fell back onto her haunches. She raised one of her forehooves, staring at it.
When did killing become my first choice? My only choice?
She wondered.
You're right, Rainbow,
she said, sheathing Solstice.
What? Now hold on just a second,
Applejack said.
She's a criminal. We can't just let her run free.
We can, and we will,
Twilight said.
We can't execute her even if it's what she deserves. We should only kill when we have to. And we don't have to kill her. And I'm not carting her to some dungeon where she'll rot away either.
She glanced at the ponies beside her.
Fluttershy, if you can forgive her, heal her. Rarity, give her 50 bits. Enough to get a fresh start.
Applejack nickered, but said nothing. Rarity and Fluttershy nodded, stepping forward. Fluttershy pressed her hooves against Gilda's wounds, almost without hesitation. As Fluttershy healed her, Gilda said,
Thanks, Dash. I won't forget that you had my back. I owe you one. You always owed me one,
Dash muttered.
It never changed anything.
Gilda pulled herself to her feet, restored. Her eye and her wing were beyond repair, but she could stand and walk on her own. She took the offered bits from Rarity.
This time, I mean it,
she said, before turning and walking out of the courtyard. The first rays of the dawn illuminated for her for a moment, and then she slipped out of sight.
There's one more thing I need to do before we leave,
Rarity said.
Can I borrow Solstice?
Sure. What for?
Twilight asked as she passed the sword to Rarity.
Dragon scale is a fantastic material. Oh, and one more thing.
Rarity nonchalantly pointed to Pyros' head with the blade.
We need to get that in the bag. We shouldn't go before the Duchesses without undeniable proof of what happened here.
When Twilight opened her mouth, Rarity added,
And yes, it will open that wide. It's magic.
Twilight Sparkle sat in the amphitheater. The stones were fresh, uncracked, and unblemished. She looked forward at the central stage, alone but not alone. The 5 lights of her friends floated beside her, and the specter lurked in the darkness next to her. Excepting Pinky, she had met them on the road, and now they were always with her. She watched herself step up and take the stage and face her first foe, the sniveling bandit from the road. He lunged at her, oblivious to her strength. Her blade struck him with a violent flick, and his form froze and shattered. Next was Tarn Inkstroke, and after him the ogre with the belt and every one of her foes in order. As often as not, she wasn't the one to deal the final blow. Sometimes they escaped with their lives, but the end result had always been the same. She won. Battered, bloody, and beaten, but better than all that stood before her. It wasn't fair, what she did. Sometimes her enemies were greedy, and sometimes they were just desperate. But the ones that crossed her path and lived, Trixie and Gilda, were truly sinister. Ironwill died in a blink of an eye because he was angry about his brother's death, but Gilda slaughtered her comrades for treasure and lived. After Pyros shattered, and after Gilda limped out of the ring, there were none left to challenge her. The specter whispered to her. We've grown strong, haven't we? Twilight raised her gaze and turned to face it.
I thought I beat you, too.
The shadows around her pulsed with laughter. No matter your choices, I will always be here. I will make us strong. Twilight glared at the specter.
You tried to take Fluttershy away from me. How does that make me stronger?
Can't you see that your friends are holding us back? Your attachment to them makes it difficult for you to be what you were meant to be.
And what am I meant to be?
Twilight asked. The skull grinned at her. You revel in killing, but still you repress your desire because of them. Surely you can feel the surge of satisfaction every time you take a life.
I can,
she admitted. The Black Knight took the ring, facing her on the stage, and she circled him wearily. His helmeted head tracked with her. His essence thrummed inside of his armor, and she wanted to taste it. Despite your choices, I will help you kill him, because it is one of the things you are meant to do. I promise you, his death will be the most delicious one we have ever dealt, the specter told her.
Good,
Twilight said. When Twilight opened her eyes, a pair of blue ones greeted her, piercing into her soul with their intense gaze.
What's good?
Pinky asked.
Nothing.
Twilight grumbled sleepily and swatted at Pinky's face with her forehoof.
No way.
She rolled onto her side and closed her eyes.
Nothing's good? That's a pretty depressing way to look at things. I mean, I know you can be the glass half empty type, but there's still water in the glass, isn't there?
Pinky said. Twilight flicked her eyes open and glanced up at Pinky.
I didn't mean...
Pinky was standing on the wall. Twilight groaned and shoved her head under her pillow.
I'm still dreaming,
she muttered. A point of pain flared on her flank, and she threw off her pillow.
Ow! I pinched you and this isn't your dream,
Pinky said with a smile.
You had me going for a second there, Twilight. Good one.
She giggled.
Oh, looky!
She waved one of her hooves in front of Twilight, revealing the shoe from the dragon's lair fixed to the keratin.
I figured out what these do!
She pranced up the wall and stepped onto the ceiling.
I'm a spider pony! That's nice.
Twilight thumped her head back against the mattress beneath her, staring up at Pinky.
Can I go back to sleep now?
Pinky nodded vigorously.
Yep.
She contemplatively brought a hoof to her chin.
Well, if you want to miss dinner...
Groaning, Twilight climbed out of bed. She set her hooves on the floor of their room at the helping hoof inn and pulled her comb out of her bag.
Okay, I'm up.
Pinky dropped off the ceiling, flipping gracefully down before landing lightly on the floor. She made for the door.
I'll see you downstairs,
she called over her shoulder.
And that's how I got over my soap addiction,
Pinky said with a grin to the group gathered at a table on the main floor of the inn. Twilight struggled to avoid laughing while she tried to swallow her mouthful of cider. A piece of food fell out of Rainbow's mouth when a guffaw burst out.
Pinky? Not while I'm eating.
Twilight managed to gulp down her drink without choking or snorting it up her nose, and as soon as her airway is clear, she just let go, laughing while she watched Rainbow try and remove the offending bit of dinner from her chainmail. Quiet for a second, Applejack said. Pinky chortled.
What's the matter, Rainbow? Can't keep clean?
Applejack thumped the table. Quiet! Twilight managed to suppress her laughter to a quiet snicker.
What's wrong?
Fluttershy's trying to say something, Applejack said, indicating Fluttershy with a hoof. The table finally went silent, and Fluttershy stood up to say,
Has anyone seen Rarity? She wasn't in our room when I woke up.
Twilight glanced around, noting that their head count was one short.
Come to think of it, I haven't seen Spike either. Has anyone seen her since she went into that outbuilding with the dragon scales?
Out of nowhere, Rarity pounced on Applejack, grabbing the Earth Pony's shoulders from behind.
Applejack, you simply must come see what I've made.
Her eyes were bloodshot, and her mane was uncharacteristically disheveled. Applejack recoiled, tensing. What in the hey?
Rarity, did you sleep?
Twilight asked.
Not a wink,
Rarity said while she tugged on a reluctant Applejack.
You can't stop the muse, even if you've been up for a day straight.
She let go of Applejack and beckoned to every pony.
Come.
Twilight stepped into the small outbuilding that Rarity led them to. Inside, what used to be a tool shed had been replaced by Rarity's workshop, complete with a body-size mirror. A folded piece of Pyros' scaled, magically cured skin rested on a table in the center of the room. The object that drew Twilight's attention, however, was a set of dragon-scale armor on a mannequin. Rarity rushed over to it, running her hooves over the lamellar layers of hide and scale that made up the armor.
Put it on, Applejack. I need to make some final adjustments.
Wow, Rarity. This is...
Applejack said as she approached the armor. Spike shifted in the corner of the room where he was putting Rarity's sewing equipment into a bag.
It's a bit morbid if you ask me.
Rarity shrugged.
It's just like any other letter. He wasn't using it anymore.
She swept Spike into a hug.
And thank you for all your help, Spikey Wikey.
She said as she planted a kiss on his forehead. Spike blushed.
No problem.
You did get permission to use this space, right?
Twilight asked. Rarity nodded.
Absolutely. Bun Bun was so grateful after what we told her what happened, after all. She'll get to keep the inn.
Applejack held the faceplate. She wrapped it with a huff.
Isn't it a little thick?
It's much lighter than steel, so I spared nothing on protection. I had plenty of material to work with.
Rarity explained.
How did you manage to get this done so soon?
Twilight asked. Rarity smiled at her.
A creative spark, a wonderful assistant, and a touch of magic.
So much sewing. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get a needle through a dragon scale?
Spike muttered, massaging his claws.
Diamond tipped or not.
With Rarity's help, Applejack strapped on the pieces of armor. Each one melded perfectly with her form. Thick, multi-layered plates defended critical areas. The joints were left open, protected by curtains of scales flexibly threaded together. The oversized left shoulder blade jutted up from the armor, providing a shield that Applejack could use to cover her face. Rarity pressed a hoof into the plate covering one of Applejack's sides. It compressed beneath her hoof.
I layered it to absorb impacts. Each scale folds under another.
She walked around Applejack, giving her a once-over.
Looks like I got it almost right on the first try. I'll have to adjust some of the straps, though. Hold still. You've done enough today, Rarity. Take a break,
Twilight said.
But I'm not finished,
Rarity whined. She attacked the straps holding the armor with zeal. Applejack winced as one of the straps pinched her. Ouch!
You really should sleep,
Fluttershy quietly said from the doorway.
Sorry,
Rarity said.
It seems I've lost a bit of precision. Don't worry, I just need to refocus. I'm not tired.
She tightened another strap. Applejack tensed, gritting her teeth. Rarity!
Get some rest,
Twilight ordered.
I don't wanna,
Rarity complained, childishly prancing in place. She suddenly sagged, and the aura of her magic faded. Twilight glanced over her shoulder and caught Fluttershy's eyes glowing. Rarity slowly settled down onto the ground.
Maybe a quick nap wouldn't be too bad.
Within a few seconds, she was snoozing peacefully, her head nestled in her forehooves. Fluttershy's eyes widened as the glow left them.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make her do that. I just thought I should help her relax. I didn't mean to use magic on her.
Twilight rubbed her forehead with a huff.
It was for her own good. We have plenty of time to get to Manhattan. The trip shouldn't take more than a few days. We can leave tomorrow after she gets some sleep.
She sighed.
We could all use a good night's rest.